So now we're going to be talking about this article that is from rightwingwatch.com. It was written by Peter Montgomery and came out on June 15th this year. The headline is The ABCs of Moms for Liberty Summit Speakers: Authoritarianism, Bigotry, Censorship, Disinformation, Extremism. You know the drill. So basically, this group, Moms for Liberty, is having a summit meeting. It's like a convention type of thing where they're going to have speakers and so forth. And they have quite the list of speakers. It includes people like Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Dennis Prager of PragerU fame, Tim Barton, et cetera, et cetera. But who are the Moms for Liberty, right? It sounds like a good thing. But here's the description in the opening paragraph of this article. It says, Moms for Liberty, a group that made its name opposing public health measures in schools and quickly moved on to censorship and school board takeovers, has embraced a hard-edged political role on the right wing of the Republican Party. Its National Joyful Warriors Summit later this month features politicians, pundits, some of which I've named here, and political activists promoting authoritarian attacks on the freedom to read, vicious anti-LGBTQ smears, vaccine disinformation, election denialism. Boy, the full gamut there. Now, but I wanted to get the flip side too. So I went to the momsforliberty.org website and I looked up, and this is from their own self-description. They call themselves Moms for Liberty welcomes all that have a desire to stand up for parental rights at all levels of government. Not entirely sure what that means, but it sounds very good, right? Our founders are Tiffany and Tina, moms on a mission to stoke the fires of liberty. As former school board members, they witnessed how short-sighted and destructive policies directly hurt children and families. Now they are using their firsthand knowledge and experience to unite parents who are ready to fight those that stand in the way of liberty. And of course, we don't want people standing in the way of liberty. This sounds like quite a pro-choice, pro-gender equality. Boy, they sound like they're just so inclusive. Where should we start first on this, Cynthia? What do you think?
When I hear that a group is led by or founded by, what was it, Tina and Tiffany?
Tina and Tiffany.
Tina,
What, you couldn't have two more wholesome mom names right there. Tina and Tiffany.
all I could think of is you can't sit at our lunch table, but but regardless of that, it's interesting. Like if you read the article and you can actually see what some of the different attendees speakers said during their talks, if you want to put it that way. It was quite interesting, to say in the least. But I wanted to pose to you all, with this being an election year, this summer is hosting people, as you said, Scott, like Trump, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Dennis Prager. What is the biggest challenge with these type of people that's being platformed, that our country, well, that the United States itself is facing? I would love to get the international point of view. Teo, what are you thinking when you hear that question?
I've said it before. The USA scares me. I'm scared as hell. So yeah, I have this. I have finally decided I'm not going to live in the USA, even if you paid me. I mean, when you have a group of people with a group that was organized in order to fight the response to the COVID pandemic. So these people were out there saying, "We don't believe in this in this disease that is killing everybody around us, and we should have the right to make our children sick and risk the life of teachers." And when those people are heard by politicians, and politicians actually give them reasons to be right, it really scares me. I mean, it's like the whole country is going, I don't want to use the words not sane, but I'm extremely worried, guys. I mean, politicians openly supporting groups that are against the freedom of choice, that are against, the basic rights of people. As you mentioned, they are one with those groups that are smearing LGBTQ people and their allies. They don't want children to discover things about themselves. They want to stop sexual education at schools, and they are against vaccines. I mean, they are against the basic protection that we have against disease. It's extremely scary for me. It's extremely scary, and I can see how the USA is going backwards in time, and they are slowly bringing the dark ages. Once again, it's scary as heck, guys. I'm scared about what is happening over there.
Will we become younger as the United States steps back the clock? Right? Does that mean the rest of us, some of us, are going to get younger over time? Is that because that'd be awesome?
Like reverse Benjamin Button.
Exactly. Wait, was that? Yeah. Yep. Just like that.
What are you thinking? What are your thoughts, Glenn, when I was asking
Well,
that question?
initially, when I first heard about this group, I was thinking, what a benign name. It's a good name. But after a closer look, I had to say that I think the only reason they got the name is braindeadextremist.org was already taken. you know, Jesus Christ, 2 popsicle sticks and soiled depends. They used a Hitler quote on their website. It was in a section with its own colors and fonts, but they say nothing to see here. You're overreacting and taking it out of context. I do think the context is pretty clear. We have a group of radicalized moms quoting Hitler's, uh, he alone who owns the youth gains the future while trying to control school curriculum. You can't make this shit up. And of course, you mentioned speakers, Cynthia. Ed Kelly is a school board member in Charleston, South Carolina. He gave a speech at one of their Moms for Hate, Moms for Liberty event. He actually said that he would bring a gun to the house of a transgender student if his child was their student. Now, he still has his job. The transgender teacher was put on administrative leave.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Now, they've worked hard to ban things in classrooms, any topic they don't like. They indoctrinate a whole gauntlet of phrases for every flavor of bigotry. It's like a delirious AI sport, just spouting out the worst choices possible. But last time I was on here, we discussed education, and here we are again. You mentioned it earlier. This indoctrination that they're trying to do, to them, education is a threat. Miseducation is the tool. They're just taking that Hitler quote to heart and running with it.
Yeah.
So, at the end of it, it's cafeteria bigotry and hate for all. Well, maybe not everybody, just who they decide is us.
Well, speaking of cafeterias, and I'm glad that you kind of went towards education. And I know, Scott, you are an educator. And do you think that when you hear about some of these people who are superintendents of school boards, and I think that even one of the women that were platformed was the superintendent of South Carolina. I believe her name was Ellen Weaver. She got her, she's supposed, in order for you to have that position, you're supposed to have a master's degree according to that state's criteria. She has an associate's degree, according to the article, from Bob Jones University.
Oh, nice.
Because we know when you go to Bob Jones University, that qualifies you for everything. it totally does. Look it up. But I'm curious to know, especially from a person who's in the fray right now, when you think of like some of the things that they're saying, like anti-woke education, don't say gay, and especially we can't talk about certain things inside the classroom, and they're constantly pushing these particular ideologies like history erasure, CRT bad, woke is bad, or whatever. Do you think that this is just the beginning of what maybe like this particular group wants to do, or do you feel that there's going to be or do you look at a larger threat towards education from Christian nationalists?
I think it could go both ways, right? It's hard to say. So yes and no, I suppose, would be my answer. We do know that people that are in power, they want to stay in power, and they're going to use that power to keep more power, right? And so I think that's what it boils down to. If an educated populace gets in the way, then that's got to go, right? It's not about I would call myself a progressive, and so I'm about the progression of society, the advancement of society, the improvement of society. But if some of those things get in the way, then they got to go. So education per se, I don't think is necessarily something that that is an end goal for them. I think it's just part of how it turns out. So if like I said, if education gets in the way, that's got to go. If respecting people that are different from you undermines their talking points, that's got to go. If a rational take on religion, ghosts, magic, afterlife, whatever, if that's hampering your control, then that's got to go. So I think that it's about maintaining barriers, and so I wouldn't say that I think that they are specifically targeting education. I think it's more collateral damage in this case.
Mm-hmm. What was your comment, Glenn?
Well, one thing that I thought about is they fucking offered money to try to catch school teachers breaking their rules, their guidelines. I mean, this isn't a chilling effect. This is an icing effect, threatening librarians. I mean, this is a whole new ball game. This isn't let's change the rules and keep books out of schools. That's even if we keep them out of schools, it boils down to we're going to make you think just like us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Have any of you, Teo? I'm curious to know. Have you ever even heard of the term woke before we actually started covering some of these particular stories?
Oh yeah, down here we have the synonym, which is progre, which comes from progressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody who wants to go through progress. Um, yeah. Well, that's the Spanish version,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so
That's
weird to
the Spanish equivalent for woke. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
progre.
Okay, progress.
You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
Gotcha.
somebody who goes in favor of progreso, so
Mm-hmm.
progressing in English.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always weird for me when people uses that as an insult, because they are literally saying, oh yeah, how do you dare wanting the same right for people, how do you want to make the society better, how do you dare asking for women having the same rights than men, for no discrimination, and you are against anything that we should be against. And it's creepy and it's weird. And I know that you're going to say that I'm obsessed, but for me, because I always talk about the harms of religion. Come on, if you see me in TikTok, the ACA's TikTok, I'm always talking about the harms of religion. But
No,
guys,
Teo. No, you don't. Whatever.
but
Who
here
let
you
this
have
guy in? Who let this guy in?
I'll pray for you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. But here we have the perfect example of what religion does to people. And I'm sure you're all familiar with The Simpsons. I have quoted them several times before. And this group of women is the perfect example of. Have you seen this meme of the Reverend Lovejoy's wife who is screaming, "Please think of the children"? Or why do you think? Who would think about the children? They are this guy, and they base all the hatred and all the how to call it, besides hatred, is going against the advancement of progress and society on the Bible, on what the religion is telling them to do. Religion tells them, no, you don't need medicine, you have the blood of Jesus, because Jesus said that things that enter your body don't harm your body, it's what comes out of it, because Jesus didn't know what viruses or bacteria were. Or no, come on. uh, God created men and male and female. So what is this thing of people discovering their own sexuality?
Mm.
And the Bible actually didn't originally. The original word is not against homosexuality, but it's about an older person having intercourse with a very, very young child. Because back at the time, I think 12, like you were an adult already. So imagine how young it was. And that is what was being condemned. But when they translated the Bible to King James, it became homosexuality.
Mm.
And now all these believers hate people who are not straight. And once again, another of the many harms of the Bible, not the Bible, of religion in general, because it's not only the Bible, it's many religions that do the same.
Mhm.
And it's quite sad. It's as I said,
Well,
call me
when
obsessed, but yeah, I see the harms of religions there.
Well, I was going to say, like, when I was listening to you, Teo, especially when you started talking about, like, when we first had, like, the Council of Nicaea and and we started to do, like, the translations of the copy of the copy of the copy, to the point where different scribes were putting in their own bends on certain scriptures to fit their narrative, and every time that I ever heard a theologian who actually talks about the Bible per se and the history of how we got our Bible now, how we got the Bible now, it was always about uh, propagating a particular agenda. And when I see this particular summit and like some of the different things that was being said, I think that one of my favorites was Nikki Haley saying that, oh, what did she say? She said some mess about like wokeism is
Teen
like the
suicide.
yeah, she was talking about like how like some people would want to there was like a more suicide because of like different like trans agendas being pushed, and
Yeah.
and also, when she was even asked about, and she said that after she was asked what does woke mean, and she always equivocates it to something like terrible concerning, well, trans people were killing themselves more because these woke ideologies are being pushed on them, or some mess like that. And Ron DeSantis basically did the same thing. It was just one horrible thing after another, after another, after another, for just about every speaker that got up. And you can't help but say that this is an agenda, and the agenda, as all of you all eloquently put it, is really just to stay in power. But I know that you wanted to add a little something, because I can tell through your cartoon glasses, Teo, that you had something else to
There's a
add.
twinkle in his eye.
It really is sparkling, the catch light, so go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add something. I actually wanted to quote Darrell Ray, who I'm sure you all know.
Mhm.
When I was talking with him, we talked about his book, The God Virus, and he explained how religion always needs an enemy. And for a long time, the most common thing for us has been sexuality, and being homosexual has been so extremely common that we have had it through all our history. It's part of nature, it's all over us, it's all around us. And as time started to change, religion realized that homosexuals are being accepted, but they can't lose their enemy. They can't lose their grip on society. So
Mm.
now they are attacking this idea of accepting each other, and all that means inclusion, all that means stopping discrimination, it's turning into their enemy. So they are becoming like a force of discrimination in the world, because they always need an enemy to fight and to say, no, it's a word against us. It's we, the few chosen one, against the rest of the world that is evil and wants to destroy the things that the Lord created. And I think that is one of the biggest risks of your country right now, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to add to that.
There are definitely risks that that we are facing right now. I more so, I don't know if you can really call them risks, but they're definitely political threats. So even with all that being said, Glenn, what do we do, like as an electorate, as people who are seeing these things that's coming down the pipeline? It is, like I said, it's an election year. I'm wondering, like, what are some of the things that we can do itself in order for us to combat some of these issues that we're dealing with, or this rhetoric or propaganda that's being pushed on us by Christian nationalists.
Well, unfortunately, this problem has been going for a long time, and having been part of it in the very early '90s, being familiar with those roots, it's something that isn't new and it's not going to go away. But I think that one thing is stopping the comfort zone that goes with people who spew sick ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about, people who are standing up on talking heads on TV or something like that. But so many times we run across people in daily life, and definitely here in Texas, where people think nothing of saying the absolutely most horrible things. And I think it's just standing up and saying, no, that's not acceptable.
Mhm.
Starting right there, because we're not going to change the people who are trying to get campaign funds and get elected. They're going to do what they do as long as they think it's going to work. they're not going to change if the people around them quit buying the idea.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah. What about
Yeah,
you, Scott? What do you want to add to that?
yeah, so I agree completely with everything Infidel just said there. We got to stand up and say no. We've talked about this kind of thing on this show quite a bit about how important it is to get out and vote, make your voice known, make sure that you're not being quiet here. But sometimes that can be difficult to see results, right? I mean, that's kind of the big drawback is like, what does my vote matter? But
Hmm.
but we know that votes do make a difference, and it's an accumulation of small contributions by many people that can make these big moves. But I think it's important to as well, maybe even more important, that we talk to people, that are not like us, talk to people that hate your guts. The more we know about other people, not only will we learn more about them, but then they'll learn more about us, and then we can stop treating each other as opponents and as enemies and as people to be overcome and thrown out. We can come to we start seeing each other as human beings. This us versus them mentality, this us versus them attitude. We've seen that uh, used as a barrier for growth. I was talking about before about how people in power want to keep those barriers in place. And so
Yeah.
one way that we can, on a grassroots ground level, address one of those big barriers is to step over, those barriers, step over those divisions between us. And that's something that we can have more immediate feedback. And it's something that we can overcome just as long as just as long as we put in the effort, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree with that, and even to your point, especially like reaching out and talking to people who may be different from us. In my research, I was actually able to find a website from a group that was called Evangelicals for Democracy, and I just wanted to read a little bit that was on their website. They said that onward Christian soldiers marching as to war with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ, the royal master, leads against the foe, forward into battle, see his banners go. But now a group of right wing Christian soldiers are waging a vastly different war. These soldiers, who are primarily white and represent about 20% of the public, believe that the American nation is defined by Christianity and that the government should take active steps to keep it that way. Thus, their war is to claim the U.S. as a Christian nation with an official Christian culture in their worldview. Christians are America's first citizens and have a presumptive right of dominance in American law and policy. Already, the influence of Christian nationalism is shaping policies at the state and local levels, including book bans and a reinterpretation of American history in the school curricula. But the real threat is what is happening behind the scenes. So far, these policies represent potential risk to our way of life, but the danger is real. Christian nationalism is not an idea. The movement has grown in recent years, enlisting angry, aggrieved, and militant people who now use violence to preserve Christian values. Thus, as Christians, and especially as evangelicals, we cannot sit on the sidelines. We cannot talk of following the Prince of Peace and portray him with support for or tolerance of extremists. After all, the history of Christianity from Constantine to the 18th century was one of state sponsored coercion and violence. And that was very refreshing to actually see from an actual Christian group that calls
Yeah,
themselves democracy, Evangelicals for
that's
Democracy.
gutsy.
Very gutsy, but but there are other Christian organizations that are like Christians against Christian nationalism, and other people who happen to still be theists but believe that our nation, with Christian nationalists at the helm, is actually in the wrong direction. But if you want to actually hear more from us who are trying to step us in the right direction, please click here.